Good morning, class. My name is Gisela, and I'm going to be talking about Chapter 4. Selma Cutler was a 92-year-old elderly woman who lived by herself. She was raped and killed by the suffocation of the weight of the rapist. Her body was found by her grandson, and they found out that the rapist had a blood type A+. In her community, there has been a bunch of rape crimes against elderly women at around the age 80 to 90. Just because they lived by themselves and they had no way of protecting themselves against burglaries in their houses. Robert Miller was a match to the blood type, so he became a suspect in the crime. He was a 27-year-old living 3 blocks away from the crime scene. He worked as a heating and air conditioning repairman, and he was a known drug addict. He mentioned that someone could have added PCP into something that he later ingested. What is PCP? PCP is phencyclidine, which is a type of drug with a bunch of side effects known on the screen. It is a powdered type of drug. PCP can be smoked, ingested, mixed with water, drank, and eaten. Why was Miller wrongfully convicted? He was wrongfully accused because he had the same blood type as the rapist, and so did some people in the world. He claimed that the killer left underwear during questioning, and then during trial, they found underwear in one of the crime scenes of Fruit of the Loom brand. During questioning, Miller described how the house was decorated, which gave the officers more evidence that he was in the house. He knew also why the telephone lines were cut, and he said that he had dreams of the situation. He also said that he knew the feelings and the way that the killer was thinking at the time. And he used the word "I" through to every answer of the question, which claimed that he was the killer, and also the type of hair that he had was found on the bed. During trial, 68 of the viewers watching the trial thought that he was guilty. The jury heard 12 hours of tapes, forensic evidence, and then later on convicted him of 2 murders, 2 rapes, 2 burglaries, and 1 attempt and 725 years. Ronald Lott was in the community where all the elderly women lived. He went inside one of the elderly women's house, and the elderly woman had a gun and tried to defend herself. He took the gun away and then left the house. Then police later stopped him on the streets, and they found the gun registered to the victim. He also found fingerprints on the other victims' houses. Then tests were done on Ronald's blood to see if it matched, secretly with him not knowing. Then he became a strong suspect for the murders that were also charged to Miller in trial. Ronald was then later taken to trial, and then he was guilty of 2 rapes from Anna Foyler and Zelma Cutler as Miller's case. He also had the same blood type as the rapist and Miller, but the only reason why Miller stayed a little longer just because he confessed to the crimes. In January 2002, Ronald was later sentenced to death, and he was executed by lethal injections on December 10, 2013, and then Robert was later released in 1998 by DNA.
Hi, I'm Melissa and I'm continuing chapter 4. It starts off by talking about how there are 35 to 840 convictions annually. 27% are either false or admission. There are 2 types of interrogations that interrogators use to get you to confess. The first is third degree. Third degree is when they physically abuse you until you confess to the crime. Psychological is where they play mind tricks and say stuff like, oh, the killer probably didn't mean to kill this person, it was an accident, they probably feel terrible, and then it gets you to confess to the crime that way. This causes a terror proxy. Terror proxy is where you're so scared about getting hurt that you admit to a crime you never committed. This confuses juries because they think, oh, no one will willingly admit to a crime that they never even heard of or committed. So that's why a lot of imprisonments are under false confessions. Then it starts talking about how Robert Miller DNA test after DNA test showed that he wasn't the rapist. Even after he was convicted, they took more DNA tests and the same results came back. He wasn't the rapist. But DA Ray Elliott stated how, although he wasn't the one that ejected the sperm, it just proves that there was more than one person there. That he wasn't the only person there. He could have been a lookout, and his partner could have been the one that raped the victims. Pretty much the only evidence they had was was his confession tape. But even his confession tape had some mistakes. He said the rapist stole jewelry, TV, and radio when nothing was stolen. And then he said the glass was broken from the back door, which is true, but he said it was just carefully taken out, but the actual glass was put in a bag next to the trash can. Pretty much his confession tape was based off dreams and visions, which was completely wrong. And then they kept trying to get him to admit like what they wanted. They would ask him because the rapist left an underwear, and they kept asking him questions like, "What did the rapist leave behind? Something? He was such in a rush. Did he leave anything?" And he kept saying, "Yes, something was left. I don't know, maybe a watch, a clothing, something." And then they would go into detail and be like, "What kind of clothing? What did he leave? A shirt, a jeans?" And then he would say, "Yeah, maybe jeans, maybe underwear, maybe a shoe, something." He was such in a hurry, he left something, but he wouldn't never say the underwear. They tried getting him to say the underwear, but he never really said underwear specifically until they said, "What kind of clothing? T-shirt, underwear. What kind of underwear?" That's the only reason he said the rapist left an underwear. Eventually, they did get a new trial in 1995 and a new attorney, which was Gavin Isaac. And Judge Jones said the confession really wasn't a confession; it was based off visions and dreams, so it shouldn't have been used in the trial. Ray Elliott tried persuading Ronald Law, who Gisela mentioned earlier, into pointing a finger at Robert Miller, saying, "If you put him at the crime, then we can make a deal, and your sentence would be lowered, or you can be left get out earlier." Sorry.
Chapter 5 of the Innocence book. We're going to start off by talking about the case of Glendale Woodlaw. Basically, he is a man that works at a cemetery and he is a grave digger. He was 29 during this incident. Basically, the backstory to all of this and how he was included was because there was a young woman walking to her car and she was approached at Huntington Mall. I believe that she worked there, but basically she was walking out to her car. A man approached her, had a ski mask on, and had a knife. He forced her to drive a few miles away. He then sadly attacked her, which means that he sexually abused her. And after that, he taped her mouth shut. This happened on January 22nd of 1987. The second incident happened 3 weeks after hers. Um, when it came to it, clearly reported to the police. They were trying to figure out who it was because, like I said, both victims didn't really see who it was because he was wearing a ski mask. Plus, I've also read that he told them to close their eyes. So there was really low chance of them to know who it was. Basically, it went to Glenn because he worked a few hundred miles away from the Huntington Mall, so he was close to it. And also, they said, hey, he has the same color hair as like the one that the victim said of his beard, and he has a minor criminal record, so kinda has to be him. Um, sorry. They got a search warrant, went to his house, and in his house they saw a ski mask that was brown, and also saw tape that they concluded that was from a shop that his wife has at the mall. So they were like, two and two, this must be the guy. Um, that's when they took him to court trial. Um,
The case was so hectic, and when I say hectic, it was because, like I said, they found evidence in his house that was to me ironic because there's some people that have the same things in their house. So I don't know. To me, it was personally kind of weird. In his trial, the case was based on scientific evidence, which means that they the they got the semen, they got his blood, matched it together. Um, there's this guy. They were like, he has to be the predator. The test will confirm that it was him. So then, when it came to it, they already had, like I said, they already had the clothes. They already had the confirmation from both of the tests saying that it was both him because of the characteristics. And then they were he asked for a DNA thing, like a DNA test, and they said that no, because it was unproven, and those two tests that they did on him were both like they were both. I guess I could say like they were both believable more because the DNA was barely knew it was a newbie, so they didn't really trust it. At the end, they were like, he's convicted. He has to go to jail. He did it. So then he got 2 sentences of life without parole and then additional 335 more years. Um, when this happened, it was insane because later on they found out but they give him, I believe, like $1 million because of the wrongfulness of it. What went wrong, like I already said, as you can see, this was Blake, the guy that reopened the case and said that it wasn't Glenn, and this one, I'm sadly blocking it, but this one, it's Frederick, that did so wrong to him. Okay. Um, like I said, this is Frederick Salem Zane. I'm calling him Zane because I don't know how to pronounce his name, and I'm so sorry. But he was a hired chemist by the West Virginia State Police Crime Laboratory. He then got promoted to the serology department of the state, and that department was what messed up for for Woodlaw for 5 years. Um, he gained his job actually by false credentials. It turns out that Frederick went to school for it and went to school for it was really, really bad at school. He barely passed. He had like a C average, but he did manage to pass the courses and everything, but he had a C average. He failed most of the tests. And when they were like hiring and stuff, he took the test for the FBI and he failed it. But no one looked background on him. It's just crazy because how are you gonna say that you know a person and know it wasn't him, and then when asked again, you said yes, it was him. I recognize him. Even the police that were there, that investigators were like, he then later on like got reopened of the case because Frederick said some really bad lies that the test that he did, he was like 1% and stuff like that. That it was 100% him. Also, did the same thing that Frederick did. He was known as the drive-by autopsy because he would do autopsies so fast. Like it was incredible how fast he would do it. In 1992, he was convicted of false autopsy reports because all of them are not like that now. Now in 2020, like lawyers have to take a test. We do more tests now for the forensic because of this is like a prime example of it. But like I said, O.J. Simpson's case, like there's just many more tests that we take now to make sure that we have the right enough people and that would actually want to help the people find either the person that did it or help them prove that they're innocent. But yeah, this concludes on the chapter 5 and chapter 4. Thank you for watching.